happy day. Happy Scorpio full moon, because that's the day I'm recording this. And let me tell you, the vibes are immaculate. We just closed the doors on PCCL, which is super exciting, and we invited so many people. I can't talk. We had so many people join. It's so exciting. If you joined PCCL, hi! Can't wait to get to know you better. Can't wait to work with you. And if you didn't, you're like, oh, shit. God damn it. I missed the deadline. It's okay. Don't worry. We open the doors of PCCL once a year. And if you're like, then I really want to work with Holisticism, sign up for our email. Like you should, sign up for our emails, because then you'll know when things open. And listen to the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. But also, we're going to open the doors to the North Node in a couple of months. Actually, this is the last time we're going to open the doors to the North Node. At first, we're like putting a gate. Like, we're not going to let more people in. We're going to cap it at a certain number of people. So if you want to join the North Node, or you're thinking about it, then that's coming up in the next couple of months. So you've got plenty of opportunities. That's all I'm trying to say here. Anyways, it's a Scorpio full moon. Vibes are strong. Vibes are immaculate. We're looking good. We're feeling fine. We are shooting daggers out of our eyes towards our enemies and the people that annoy us. And we are taking the people that we enjoy and appreciate, and we're asking them to go to the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean with us. And if they don't drown, man, are we going to give them such a fun party when we get down there. Am I right? It's a Scorpio vibe. And I think that actually the Scorpio full moon energy, and I have to applaud Wallace for this editorial decision, is such a great time to talk about today's podcast theme. We're talking about relationships with the whole team, and you're going to get to know us very well. And I want to be honest, in another life, maybe I have a relationship podcast or something, or some alternate universe, because I think my Pisces is going to show. But I've always been obsessed with love. Like, I can't help it. I've had a crush on someone since I was in first grade. Like, actually, and been in love with someone, not the same person, but I've consistently been in love for my entire life. And that, to me, was the only reason to, like, be. To love and be in love and be loved. Like, that is what moves me and makes me feel whole, is being in love. Or, dance used to do that for me too. Dance felt like what love felt like. And I remember going through my first real breakup. I think I talked a little bit about it in the episode. And I was so in love with the person I was with. And I just remember walking down the street and being like, how do people survive? How do people survive breakups? I'm not gonna live. Like, I'm not going to make it through this. How can I just, like, go check out at the grocery store and buy cereal? Like, how do people not burst into tears everywhere they are? How are they not constantly thinking about that one person? Like, does this ever go away? How can I breathe, I full on just went into a Leanne Rimes song. And I felt crazy. I felt like there was something wrong with me that I felt so deeply, and that just people could go through breakups and get over it and, like, not talk about it and just move on with their lives and not be obsessed thinking about the other person constantly blew my mind. And when I went through this really bad breakup, really bad, I needed affirmation. I needed to hear other people's breakup stories. I actually needed to hear other people's pain, to hear that my pain was okay, and that, like, I could hold it, and that it didn't make me weird or like I was messed up or something, or boring, or typical, that it made me divine. It made me have a human experience, and that's, I think, why we're here. Like, we're here to feel all the feelings, not run away from the feelings, I don't think, to, like, feel them to their full dimensionality and breadth in depth. That's a Scorpio talking in me. But when I went through my first breakup, I just like took and binged all this content, and I couldn't get enough of it, of other people going through relationships and breakups and just hearing about them. And I didn't want to hear about good relationships. I wanted to hear about like the bad stuff. And I didn't feel like I could really, I felt boring, you know, like I felt like I couldn't talk to my friends about it because they were just like tired of hearing it. And that was a story I was making up. I never get tired of hearing my friends talk about their breakups. Like, I'm like, yeah, let me make some popcorn. Let's talk about how shitty that was. Or like, yeah, that really sucked that you guys aren't together anymore. But like, let's keep talking about it because I don't know, there's just something so cathartic about it. And just hearing what other people go through, because a breakup feels so singular. I don't know about you, but it's when I felt the most alone. I mean, because it's like you're totally the person you thought knew you best in the world, or who arguably did know you best in the world. You don't have them anymore. They're not there for you anymore. And that feels so scary. And sometimes you lose your whole identity when you go through a breakup, right? Like maybe you take on your partner's favorite TV shows and places to go to dinner, and places become yours together, and memories become yours together. And it feels like maybe you don't even have something that's yours alone. That's really intense. And yeah, breakups are so much, and they're also so magical. All of the best things that ever happened to me came out of breakups. Even though I was in so much pain, the most magical and truly all my spiritual awakenings and all my magical awakenings happened when I went through a breakup. And I'm grateful now for them. And I was grateful at the time too. I'm glad that they happened, because I needed to learn. But we wanted to just record this episode because in case anyone out there is feeling alone, I know that a lot of relationships did not survive the panini. So, and I think that maybe for good, right? Where we were really realizing things in 2020 and 2021. Maybe also this will give you some inspiration for what you want in your next relationship. We've got 2 single people and 2 people in relationships on the team. Not that you need inspiration, not that we are inspiration, but sometimes it's just nice to hear that you survive. Because I was scared. I remember for every breakup I've ever had, I was like, I'm never going to be able to love someone again in the same way. I'm never going to be able to love again. Like, I'm never going to be able to go as deeply and feel as much. And I guess that's true in some ways. You love in a different way and you feel different, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And it doesn't mean it's not as soulful and it's not as deep. It's just different. I wish that someone had given me the advice when I was like, you know, laying on the floor of my bedroom crying over some guy. That it was going to be fine, and that breakups suck, but breakups are also kind of awesome. I wish I just heard more people's breakup stories. So anyways, that's this episode. I hope that you enjoy it. Maybe if you're fresh off a breakup, this will make you feel seen and heard. Maybe if you are happily in love, this will bring you back to to those days where you were just like, what is life? What is love? And maybe we'll do an episode about relationships and healthy relationships, and who knows? I don't know. So we'd love to hear from you. Okay, without further ado, I'm just going to get into the episode.
Hello, and welcome to the 12th House podcast. I love all these ladies just laughed at this intro. It's great. We are super happy to have you join us here. You're with Janelle, me.
And you're with Thais.
What's up? It's Wallace.
And Michelle. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. We're talking about breakups today. And all of the many things that come along with breakups. How usually breakups tend to be a catalyst for an awakening, a deeper understanding of yourself. But I am going through my first breakup ever right now, in the middle of it, and I've only just gotten to the part to where I am starting to feel like I have a deeper understanding of myself, and I definitely am reaching new levels of awakening. I'm also still dealing with some anger and resentment still. That's still a very real thing. So yeah, breaking up is not linear. That's the first thing that I'm realizing, that I have really good days and I have days where literally he's all I can think about, and like the breakup is all I can think about, and all the things that could have gone differently. Yeah, that's a very real thing. And there are triggers also. Like I went to Vegas. You guys, I went to Vegas. I was not half vaccinated at the time, but I did stay in my hotel room most of the time until we went to Hoover Dam. And I did get tested when I got back, but I'm now vaccinated. But I went to Vegas, so there you go. Judge me all you want. That was very triggering for me because he loved Vegas. I hate Vegas. It's the worst place in the world for me, but he really loved it. And so being there the whole time, I just kept thinking.
Were you afraid you were going to run into him?
That was a thought for a second. I don't think that where I was, I would have run into him because he likes to like be in resorts and like other places off the strip. But there was a thought of like he could be here, and then it was just like, where is he in the world? And I'm sure he's in LA. So yeah, that's all. That's it. Now I'm feeling really vulnerable about it. But yeah, breakups are hard. They suck.
It's interesting when you're like trying to also reclaim spaces that you shared or that remind you of them, where you're like, oh, we went to this place together, or that was our thing, and then now you have to kind of take back that space for yourself and be like, actually, I enjoyed it. I don't need to leave this city, this neighborhood, whatever.
Yep.
Right. I think that can be really empowering when you do it, but very triggering at the same time.
Or just asking, like, do I like this thing?
Yeah.
like,
that's a big thing.
Is this my thing? Or is this, like, our thing that I just kind of was okay with because it made the other person happy?
Yep.
Totally.
Which is a whole other can of worms.
It is. That like spans like not even just like places or like activities. Like I figured that out even with marriage for me. Like I got to a place where I was like, I don't know if I'll really get married, or I don't think like marriage is for me. And, you know, I think that I'll just like have a partnership for the rest of my life. And that may still be the case, but it wasn't until after I really kind of got to meditate on what I wanted after the breakup happened that I realized a lot of that was coming from him and our conversations around marriage and what I knew like he was expecting and wanted and like his experiences. And I feel like I just sort of was fitting myself into that because it felt like it was more comfortable to do so, do that. And not that like I was turning marriage away from myself in that relationship, but I definitely became less of a priority to me than I feel like now coming out of it. I'm like, no, I think it would be really nice to get married, you know? Like, maybe it won't happen. Maybe I don't sign a legal marriage contract, but like, I want a ceremony. I want a party. I want, you know, I want all of those things. And I just had convinced myself that wasn't important to me because it wasn't important to my partner because like they had gone through they had already gone through all that, you know? And so, yeah, that is a whole other conversation. There's a lot of things that I realized I internalized in that relationship that like coming out of it now I'm like, oh wait, no, this is not how I see the world at all, actually, you know? That's crazy. It's bizarre.
Yeah, picking apart what's yours, what was yours as a couple, and then what is theirs is really, I feel like that's a big deconditioning process that you go through for so many months after, like years after.
I have a question though. What's like the longest it feels like for anybody that it's felt like it's taken you? I know it's not linear, but I mean like in terms of like in a general time frame to like get over a relationship or to like get through a relationship breakup.
I feel like I might have the most breakups under my belt of people at this table.
There isn't like a whole like experience like we all hear.
Not that it's a competition at all, but
I ain't trying to rack up my breakup.
Again, I don't know that I'm winning. I don't know if that's a good thing. But
wait, how many is that? Because I'm like,
I think 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And so for me, it takes the longest when it's the most toxic.
Damn.
Yeah. That's my experience.
Yeah.
So like.
This is my 5th breakup.
Oh! Wallace is the winner!
The competition is moving here.
I was counting, I was like, fuck, I don't think it's more than 4, but yeah.
Wow.
Sorry. I agree with you.
Yeah, the more toxic, the more difficult. So the first person I dated for like 5 years. I lost my virginity to this guy. Like, we were in love, and he was a sex addict, and he cheated on me the whole time we were together. And we had like built a life together, you know. I was so young. It felt like our whole lives were completely intertwined and totally like codependent. We had all the same friends. He slept with many of our friends. Finding that out was it came on the heels of, I had a couple people in my life die at the same time, really tragically, and then this like big breakup situation, right? Where like everything I thought I knew about this person, I thought they would never hurt me. I thought thought it was impossible. And it was totally possible. Like, it totally happened. And that was the hardest for me. I think just because like they were definitely my first love, and we had spent so much time together, and we planned for a future together. And because it was so kind of like broken from the beginning, you know? So that took a long time to get over. Plus, I mean, I really learned about grief during that period of my life. And I think that that's what a breakup is. It's grieving. You're grieving yourself and who you were and how you're never going to be that person again. You're grieving a future that you were holding for yourself, and that won't be, even if you get back together, it won't be the same. And the relationship, I have only pretty much really happy memories from our time together. Of course, things were not that great, obviously. But it was, I'm so grateful for that experience. But it took a really long time to get over. And then the second worst one was just, I dated a narcissist. And we weren't even really together for that long. But he like burrowed into my brain, and it was so hard to get over. I like had to relearn how to be almost. So that was tough.
How old were you?
I was right before I met Ethan.
Wow.
I had basically like sworn off Ethan as my partner. And I'd basically been like, I'm just going to run a company and be like a badass witch.
Yeah.
You know, like I will curse men. And it'll be great. And I'll just like live I'll be like rich auntie. Like that sounds dope, you know? Like kids seem difficult. And I love dogs. And I want to have like buku cash and go on vacations. And so,
I think that's where I'm at now.
Same.
I very much identify with
like check.
Yeah.
Don't need men.
Sounds great.
That's so interesting what you said about grief, because it's one thing to grieve someone who's dead, like you understand that. It's another to grieve someone who's still alive.
Yeah.
Because it's not even the person you realize that you're grieving. It's the idea, like you said. So like the idea of the future that you held for yourself, even the idea of the relationship as like you saw it and not as it was.
Exactly.
So, which was a big part of my grief, was like I really held on to this idea that we had this great relationship where we were communicating so well, and that really wasn't what was happening. And that was hard to let go of that and to realize, oh, that's not how do I live in what is? And the moment that I started really living in what is, it was like, oh, okay, maybe this was the right decision, and maybe this was like the best thing to do, because that wasn't my reality. What I wanted wasn't what I had.
This is kind of an aside, but I promise it relates. I watched The Sound of Metal, the movie.
Oh God, I heard.
Riz Ahmed this weekend, and it's, without spoiling too much, it's pretty much in the trailer, but he is a metal drummer who loses his hearing and goes deaf. And he, you know, at the beginning and middle of the movie is just refusing to accept his deafness. Like he just won't believe it. And they depict it so well in his struggle with it. And I just saw like myself in so many areas where I just won't accept my reality. Like you just want to fight it. You're like, oh, if it was only different, if I had only done this, if I could only do this one thing to fix it. I felt like it was so relatable for so many different ways that we just avoid or reject or resist our current reality, and how that prevents us from like actually stepping forward. Because he didn't want to learn sign language. He was like cutting himself off from communicating the only way that he now could, because he was so stubborn, because he just didn't want to accept it. And I was like, oh, this relates so much to grief and loss in a relationship.
Totally. Denial is real. And I don't know about you all, but like for many of my breakups, it's really made me question my intuition.
Oof.
So it's
Oh
like,
my God.
how could I be so wrong
Yeah.
about this person? How could I picture a future with this person?
It's
What
so long.
what was I seeing?
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't the truth, what was it? And like, why? And I've asked a lot about that because, yeah, like, I don't know, you don't want to be stupid again and make the same, or at least I'll speak from the I didn't want to be stupid again and make the same mistakes. And like, right before I met E, I was like, I'm not going to say that I'm like in love again. I'm not going to just like the next person I fall in love with be like, they're my person.
Yeah.
I'm going to like take it a little slower. And then I met Ethan and I was like, oh, my person. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Oh, we're getting married? Okay, cool. He's like, meanwhile, he's like trying to cock block me and like, he's like trying to friend zone me. And I'm like, no, you're going to fall in love with me. Trust me.
That's amazing.
It's going to be great.
That's amazing.
That's so beautiful.
So in regards to your intuition, what was revealed to you?
I related a lot to what I see and learn in the Akashic Records with myself and when I read for other people. Of like, you're not ready. Like, you're not ready for what it is that you want, or like, you need to learn the lesson this way. I can tell you that guy ain't for you, but you're gonna have to learn it. Like, if someone had told me, any of the people I dated, if any of you are listening, sorry. Like, they were not right for me. Like, it was abundantly clear to everyone around me that those people were not right for me. And if anyone had told me, Michelle, you know, I don't really think he's your person, I would have been like, cool, I'm going to double down on this person and date them for like 2 years longer than I need to. Just because that's my personality. So, I don't know, I think that's what the intuition was like. You want to learn the hard way? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So would you say it wasn't your intuition then that was saying this is your, like, was that more you, so then the intuition, you weren't really listening to it?
I think it was a combination of both, of like wanting it to be right and wanting to be done. Like, wanting to be done with that quest of like finding the person. And also, our realities are constantly shifting and changing. Like, our destiny, we get to choose our destiny, and we're on a trajectory. And so if we pivot our trajectory, like we pivot we can, you know, find a new outcome. We can pick a new outcome for ourselves. I will say, like, every time I think that you heal yourself or you work on yourself, you're changing the outcome. Like, I think most of the time for the better. And so I feel like every time I did work within a relationship on myself, that almost made me like grow out of the relationship. It was like, you leveled up, dude. This ain't for you anymore. Like, you're not gonna just like go marry this dude and live in Orange County and
not Orange County, sis.
Yeah.
Not
Sorry.
Orange County.
No offense, Orange County, but no.
Yeah, we're not going out there.
No, baby. Yeah, no shade.
Yeah. Orange County, I always think about Lauren Conrad.
Bro, I grew up there.
That's my only framework.
Same.
Yeah. I grew up there, and yeah, I don't think I come off as an Orange County person.
Not at all.
I think what you're saying makes me think about the idea of relationships also. Like, one of the things I feel like I did in my most recent relationship that ended was I was like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to change. I'm going to, like, manipulate myself into someone that will work with this person. So that the relationship can work, because I don't want it to fail. Right? If I can just act a little bit more like this, then it'll work. And then I, like, diminished myself into, like, you know, a little small version of myself to make someone more comfortable.
And it's a fine line between like doing work on yourself, because there's genuinely work to do, right? Like, I'm totally codependent. I'm totally jealous because of like, you know, all my past history. And I shouldn't not try to make that better necessarily, but like, what is the when are you like actually changing who you are?
And also, I'm curious how you felt when you met Ethan, but this idea of like, it should feel light and easy to a certain degree. Like, relationships are not all roses, but like, it shouldn't feel hard. Like, you're always like in the mud.
This is something
that I struggle with. Because I feel like you talk to people who've been together for a long time, everyone's like, relationships are hard. And so when I was in this, I was like, oh, that's just, relationships are just hard. This isn't the wrong relationship. It's supposed to be hard. So I just like was beating, I don't even know what the expression is, but I was like really taking it too
But
far.
eventually you cross the threshold of like, you know what, this is too hard. Yeah. So you figured it out.
Yeah. And that could be something different for each person, right? Like what my threshold was different than what my partner's threshold was. Yeah. I also think just on the idea of intuition, because part of the thing that I think that happens, and I don't know this to be true, but I'm pulling this out of my own situation, is that I think our intuition can lead us into spaces where we know we need a lesson, where we know we need an experience or something. And it may not be the relationship for us, but for whatever reason, we know that we need that right now. And so I think that's where sort of the combination of that comes in. Because I do feel like, again, I had to have had my first relationship at some point. But this one in particular, really, I felt like I grew up really quickly. I knew this person for 6 years. But within us actually being we were only actually in a real relationship for a few months. Well, almost a year. And within that experience, I've learned how to communicate with someone who doesn't necessarily want to communicate or know how to communicate. I know how to navigate some of those phases. I've learned how to really be honest about what I need and what I want, and to not feel shame about that, even if the other person is feeling a way about it. I've also learned when to back off and when to shut the fuck up, because there are definitely times I'm learning in relationships, or I learn in relationships, that not everything has to be
processed.
Yeah, or even critiqued, right? I can be very critical, just of myself in general, and so I had to learn that my partner doesn't need, because I felt critiqued a lot in my relationship. That's the honest truth. I had to learn that my partner, not everything, he doesn't have to do everything that I love. I don't have to love everything that he does and the way that he does it, right? Some things I can just shut the fuck up about and let it be. And yeah, but I struggled, and I've gone all over the place now, but I also struggled to find a balance in that as well, because being that it was my first relationship, felt like I made so many mistakes in the beginning that it felt like it became harder towards the latter half of the relationship to point out when I felt like something was wrong or something was happening on the other side, and or I was being impacted by something. It became really difficult to do that because because I didn't give myself grace. I felt like I had to walk on eggshells because I was triggering my partner so much, which I had to come out of that realizing that those triggers were his. And even though he was triggered by those things, it was his responsibility to take a step back and say, what's my real issue here? What's the trigger really about? And I think what kind of ended up happening was, it was more I'm triggered, this is your fault, and you've got to do something to fix it. Or you got to let me separate myself from you, and I'll fix it on my own, but I'm going to be upset about it, and then I'll come back and it'll be fine. But that was it was always a weird space to be in.
Well, I have a question about that. For you feeling like you were walking on eggshells and not giving yourself grace because your partner was triggered. So in relationships, hypothetically, isn't it that we are supposed to have unconditional love within the relationship, and therefore when you are being hard on yourself, isn't it your partner's responsibility to give you grace?
So I can only speak for my own personal relationship. We come to find out after we did break up, and we actually spent a few therapy sessions together before we completely lost our shit together. In those therapy sessions, I discovered that he did not subscribe to the idea of unconditional love because of something that we had already been through earlier that year, which made him feel like unconditional love didn't really exist, right? That everybody has conditions on love, which is true, right? To an extent. I'm not going to... I may, and not love, but everybody has conditions on the space that they're willing to stay in, right? I love, I will love a man, but if he cheats on me, I'm not going to stay with him. Doesn't mean I don't love him anymore, but I'm not going to put myself in the position to keep being cheated on, you know? Right. So I definitely was in a space of looking for unconditional love and wanting that. I think he felt like, guys, it didn't get really complicated.
But
so, okay.
I mean, if we take it back away from the specificity of it, the question still remains. Is it can you expect your partner to give you grace and unconditional love, or is that asking for too much?
Well, I think it's an individual. I think that's a conversation to have, right? Because again, I discovered, not everybody even subscribes to the idea of unconditional love. So I think it just depends on where that person's coming from and what their experiences are in relationship and how they think about it, I agree. And I would want that for myself, but yeah.
Well, and if you see, and I think this is something I've learned also, I haven't always been good at this in my relationships at all, but in my next relationship, I want it to be a space for healing for both of us. And I don't know how conscious I was of that in a lot of my past relationships, like being able to be there for their stuff in a way that is creating a container for healing. I don't think I was very conscious of that. I think I thought I was trying to do that. But I think where that comes from is having that grace for myself first. And just making more space for that within me before I am with anyone again. And I know you hear that all the time, you have to love yourself, but I think it's like an active practice of giving yourself grace every day. And what that looks like in the relationship is different for every relationship, but I don't think I was conscious of that the way I feel very conscious of it now.
Yeah, that's a real thing to learn, just to piggyback off of that, because in the beginning, that was something that came up for me in my relationship, was the idea of calling it safe space, of like having a safe space to land for my partner, vice versa. And like, I realized that I didn't know how to do that, at least in a way that like he needed at the time. So that took communication and trying to figure out what that looked like. But part of the reason why it became so difficult for me to do that was because I realized I didn't do that for myself. Again, I didn't really discover towards the end that there was an issue sort of around, last year was hard, it was a pandemic, so I went through a lot of depression, and he didn't understand that. And that scared him. And that's a part of the reason why he left. And so but I also didn't talk to him about it to the extent that what I would explain was I feel stuck. I kept saying throughout the year, I feel stuck. And I didn't know how to address it. I didn't know how to be vulnerable about like what I was experiencing and how that was manifesting. And like, so, sometimes it would just come out to him, on him, and he would get the brunt of that. And so I would have to correct myself. But what that was I was going through a hard time, and it wasn't just the fact that I didn't know how to articulate it. I didn't fully feel vulnerable enough or comfortable enough to articulate that. I was scared. I was scared that me sharing that would make him see me differently. I was scared that it would just, like, everything would blow up,
that he couldn't hold space for it.
100%. But he didn't know how,
And I mean, I don't know about you, but I have depression. And when I was talking about it with Ethan, he's so bright, shiny, cheery, like, so Mr. Sunshine. And I'm like, I've got Scorpio in me, And so when I started saying, depression's kicking today, he's like, oh, you're using the D word. I was like, yeah, depression. Like, what do you want me to call it? Like, that's what it is. He's like, am I supposed to, like, do anything? Like, what do you need me to do? And it's hard being on the other side. It's hard for everyone, right? Because you don't know what you need. There's, like, not really anything anyone can do necessarily. It's not like you can bring someone a cupcake and that cheers them up. It's just like, you're bluesy. And sometimes you need to sit on the couch, and sometimes you just need to be like, shut the fuck up, please don't talk to me. Sometimes you need to get laid. Sometimes you just need to be by yourself. Like, you never know. I think, like, what I'm hearing is self-trust is more important than, like, mastering self-love when it comes to being in a relationship. Because, like, when you can trust yourself, that you've got your own back, and that you, like, that you're right. Like, you can trust what's coming up for you. Then you can stand on in your power. And I feel like we so often say, like what you said, Wallace, that, like, oh, you gotta love yourself first before you can, like, love other people. But I feel like that's such a, like, weird gatekeep that you have to perfectly love yourself.
It feels perfectionist.
It is.
Yeah,
it very
it's
much
like,
is.
you can't be in a relationship until you love yourself. It's
Yeah.
like, bitch, please. I'm still figuring that out.
The economy?
Really?
In a pandemic?
Plus we're, like, changing and evolving and growing all the time. So, like, who I am, like, my self-love it can't be, like, encapsulated because I'm changing. Like, I'm finding new areas of myself to love all the time. I'm never going to, like, master it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
But what about when that self-trust, like, erodes? I don't know. I have a few questions. One is that,
Well, I think that self-trust and self-love go hand in hand. Because if you love yourself, because I love myself, but trusting myself is something that I'm working towards. So is loving myself. I love myself way more than I trust myself. That's also because I haven't been taught to trust myself. But you said, eroding.
Yeah.
And so that's why, personally, for me, I think self-love is the basis, because it's like, if you love yourself, like, unconditionally, which I do think is possible. I think it's just constant work and constant unconditioning. Right. And it's just like, but if you love yourself, I think that you're constantly working to trust yourself. So if you see that not trusting yourself or eroding your self-trust is doing something that's damaging to you, then personally for me, it's like, what work do I need to do, or what do I need to not do, or what is this discomfort I need to sit in to trust myself again? Because at the end of the day, when you break up with somebody, you're just left with yourself.
Yeah. That was kind of my follow-up question, is like, if I'm sure there are some people who are maybe going through a breakup right now who are listening, or just recently have, or are maybe in something they're not sure about.
Panini breakups. They're real.
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Pandemic panini.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
A lot of people are breaking up. I know many women
who fast-tracking together.
Yeah.
Well, either
one or the other.
It's like, like we're either pregnant or
or it's over.
Right.
It's been 10 years and it's done.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering. I don't know. One thing I was thinking is, I like that exercise of zooming out like 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want to say. Like, what would you say to yourself if you can like look back now and have the wisdom? What would you guys say to yourself if you were going through a breakup? Or like, would you have said to yourself at that time? I don't know. I don't know if that's even really a question that makes sense, but
I think it's a great prompt. Yeah. It's great to think about.
It depends on the breakup. I mean, I think that I don't know about you guys. I'm always thinking about, like, what is future me going to think of, like, what this crazy person is doing? Like, what am I doing right now? Like, I remember, I have a good breakup story. So, I lived in an apartment in Koreatown, and I lived right above Cassell's. It's a hamburger spot. It's all windows on one side, and I dated this guy. And
great chips.
Yeah, they're great.
They're
great. It's a great spot. So, it's kind of my spot, because I lived right above it. And I dated this guy, and he lived far. He lived, in like mid-city or something. Far enough.
In LA.
Right in LA. He didn't live in my neighborhood. And
which is almost non-negotiable situation.
Not for me. I feel like that's a silly reason not to be with someone. So we were like on and off. He was a narcissist. And we broke up. And I was walking my dog around the block, as one does. And I walk past this restaurant, and this asshole is sitting on a date with someone else in my restaurant.
Not below where you fucking live.
Yes. In my restaurant, like, underneath my apartment. And
my God.
The audacity of that man, I was so mad.
Yeah.
I was so mad. And so I did another lap. I was like, I have to
I got you another lap. Come on, Vaughn, let's go.
And then I was like, what should I do? Should I go inside? Should I do anything? And I was like, I can't possibly. Like,
oh my God.
And then I was like trying to walk without being seen. It was like, oh my God, I crossed the street. But in that experience, which was so just like triggering and horrible, and I was just like about to cry, and also just wanted to like break the windows of that restaurant and just like embarrass the shit out of him. I just remember being like, okay, but what are you gonna do? How are you gonna look at this in 3 years? Like, are you gonna be embarrassed about? Are you gonna be like, great story, amazing cocktail party story to talk about how you went in and embarrassed someone at Cassell's and then you cried? Or are you gonna be like, no, it was even better when I went home and then texted him, hope you liked your burger.
Yes!
Like, the next time he texted me or something. And I was like, okay, I feel like that's the one I gotta do.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm gonna, right now, what I really want to do is, like, poke a straw up his nostril and, like, punch him in the balls. But I don't think that that's right. I think that, like, future me would like this story better. And
future you definitely
a better story. Like,
he did cry when I confronted him.
Did he really? Well, that's great. That's all you needed. That's all you need. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great breakup story.
Yeah. But future you, I'm just asking future you, like, what are you going to think about this? And I feel like it also gives you grace, because if you ever think about like something embarrassing that you did where you're just like, oh God, you know, like a cringe video of like, I can't believe I did that when I was 21 or 23. I can't believe I drove past that guy's house like in my car and thought I was being sneaky or whatever. You also are kind of like, and I just like really needed to learn that. Like, I just need to like embarrass the shit out of myself. I needed to get a little too drunk at that party, or I needed to like, you know, whatever.
It needs to happen.
Ask that guy out there, person out wasn't into me, and get rejected. Like, it needed to happen. It's embarrassing, but like, I learned from it.
Yeah, I think I still have some space for some embarrassing moments in this breakup. There's still some things I'm contemplating that may go down. Like, we'll see. And future me may be proud about that. No, but that's a really great lens, I feel like, to think about things through, because I don't do that at all. I'm very much like, present me right now is like beating myself up, you know? Like, present me right now is like not, wants to like just break this window. But that's literally why I've avoided driving past his house, because I think
I would
would
say
be some
continue to do that.
Just don't go in that area.
Like, just avoid the route.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having foods that you know are like the foods that you just can't not stop eating. Like in your house, it's like, it's maybe just, I don't need the whole wheel of cheese.
No.
You know?
Cheese will do it to you.
Cheese will do it, man. I'm a mouse all of a sudden.
Cheese will do it.
Love me some cheese.
Cereal for me.
But what about when, I feel like maybe this is a good segue. Like, have you been in a situation or a relationship where you thought everything was fine, you thought it was great, and then as you step away from it, you realize it was actually super toxic, or there was like a lot of stuff happening there that wasn't okay, and that you just, when you're in it, when you're in your bubble of your relationship, you're like, well, it's normal for him to talk, or them to talk to me that way, and then you maybe like don't tell your friends because it's a little embarrassing, or you don't tell your parents, or whatever. You don't want everyone to think badly of your partner, especially if you like want to be with them. And then as you get away from it, you like start to maybe pull back those layers and be like, that was not cool. That was like emotional abuse or physical abuse, or this was toxic. And I don't know, I kind of not let it happen, but it happened. It happened to me. Does that happen to me?
That was definitely this relationship for me. There were definitely moments and spaces of like the ways in which he would communicate, like based on how he would describe like what he felt like I was doing to him. He would always communicate it violently. Like it would always be like, well, if you're going to punch me in the face, if you're going to stab me in the back, or he told me once when I got a hairstyle that I knew he didn't like, that like because of that, like I would slit his throat. Like I would slit his throat like if his back was turned. He's like, I don't mean that literally. Like I'm like, well then stop saying that. Like don't use that language because it's actually very violent.
Just don't. You can't equate those.
You can't at all.
They're not the same.
Yeah, and he didn't understand that, and he kept kind of using that language. And yet there would be real clear moments where when I would say something in a way, like I said at one point that he was holding me emotionally hostage, and he literally told me, "Don't say that. You can't say that. Like that can you find a different way to say that?" I said, wow, the audacity. I said, you know what, out of respect, I'll find a different way to explain that to you so you understand it. But no, that's what I mean. Like, no, that's how I feel. And so I think I just realized there was a level of like, there was a dynamic in which the best way I can say it is there was a lot of emotional hostage. I was being held emotionally hostage in that relationship for a lot of that experience.
I'm sorry.
And I didn't recognize it for what it was until closer to the end. And even then I thought we could get through it and work it out. And if I could get him to understand that that's what he was doing. And, that didn't work out. So that was what I discovered. And that was really hard. That was a really, like, kind of like one of y'all said, like I had an experience of like really beating myself up during that relationship. I questioned everything, like about myself and my own intuition, and 100%. And I just thought I was failing. I was a horrible. I knew I wasn't a bad girlfriend because I knew I was trying very hard. I was in therapy. I was like trying to go through all my behaviors, and like I knew I was trying, but like nothing was ever really working. Like I felt like I would get momentum and then one thing would happen and I would trigger him again. It was almost like we were back at square one.
Yeah. And was your partner also doing the work?
No. Well, I didn't, it wasn't until coming out of it or like coming to the tail end that I was like, wait a minute. I'm trying here. I'm in therapy. I'm asking you about therapy. You refuse to go to therapy. You don't want to, and yeah, it was hard for me to see that. I think again, because I internalized a lot of what happened in the beginning, whereas he described himself very much in the relationship as easy, he's like, this is going to be so easy. You and I together is going to be so easy. We'll hardly ever argue. And even that I didn't realize was a red flag. Cause one, nobody should ever describe a relationship before going into it as easy. Yeah. And two, that's a lot to live up to. It's a lot to try to live up to. And that's what I tried to do. Yeah. And so every time I found myself not being easy like he was, right? I would just be like, fuck, why can't I be easy? He's the easy one. It's not me, you know? And that wasn't the case. That wasn't at all what was happening. And he actually wasn't easy, so.
Yeah, that's so interesting. There's also, this idea in wellness and spirituality that, it's 100% on you to do your work. Yeah. If you're triggered, it's 100% on you.
Yeah.
That is your problem. Yeah. You just have to do the work more. Yeah. And I don't think that's right.
No, it's not. It's absolutely
100%. Because what we just heard was you doing a lot of work and your partner not. And that's just, I'm not saying that he wasn't doing anything, but you were doing a lot and you weren't being met. So therefore, when you're growing and you're learning, that person can't vibrate with you. Yeah. And that's just important for people who are listening. If you're in a situation and you're doing all that you can, look at what your partner is doing and is it matching you?
Yeah, exactly. Because at a certain point, you will energetically be on different pages. And I think that's what can create so much of the friction in a way. It was actually when I was happier because I was doing work on myself to not actually put my self-worth dependent on the relationship. Once I was getting to that stage, that became a big problem for the relationship because I was doing well on my own. Because I was oh, my self-worth really needs to come from me and my relationship to myself. But then that really didn't help the relationship because I wasn't codependent anymore. And so...
And you both had created that dynamic with each other.
So basically he was oh, we don't match anymore. I'm not getting what I used to get from you. I can't get it anymore because I wasn't there to be that codependent in return.
Yeah. That's
and
one
I
of the...
was hopeful that he would meet me.
Yeah.
I was hopeful that he would do the work and that hope can kill you in a relationship.
Ooh, Lord Jesus.
Well, I think
hope can have you stay in it longer than you need to.
You think I think someone will change.
Yeah.
You hope the relationship will change. You'll grow together, but it's hope I think is a tricky, sneaky thing.
Oof.
I think that if you're blinded by hope,
right,
that's when it does the not so good things. But just keeping your eye on hope, but also keeping your eye on what's real.
Reality.
Yeah.
That's tricky though, because you said you got to offer your partner grace and unconditional love, and it's that. I think it's what's that threshold moment? You know, I'm reading this book. I think I mentioned it, Black and White Thinking.
Yeah.
And did I tell you guys about the piles?
No.
Okay, so we as humans, we like to categorize things, right? And we like clear distinctions. But life is not clear. Distinctions are not clear. So imagine you have grains of sand or grains of rice. And you're putting rice into, a couple grains of rice into a little pile. And then you put a couple more grains of rice into a medium-sized pile and then a bigger pile. Well, what is the distinction? How many grains of rice is the difference between a big pile, the medium pile and the small pile? You probably wouldn't be able to say, but you know what it looks like. You know when a pile has crossed over from the threshold of being small to now being medium. And same thing from being medium to being large. But you couldn't say, well, it's 50 grains of rice more. And that's life, right? We don't know it until we have a comparison. We don't know what the threshold is.
Yeah.
So until we see it next to those other piles of rice.
I feel a big turning point for me was being oh, that's what a healthy relationship looks like around me, seeing partners. And I was oh, that's such a different interaction. And I was that is so foreign. And then seeing it and being oh, that's possible.
Yeah.
That's a thing that can happen.
Yeah. Can I say something on that? At first, I want to say something about the unconditional love to your partner. Like, IDK about unconditional love to your partner. I'm still, like, figuring that out. But I am figuring out unconditional love for myself. And I think if that is my energy and my partner's energy is unconditional love for themselves as well, then we're vibrating on that. And so we're constantly doing the work to love ourselves, which I think, because I don't know about, like, loving you unconditionally.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that takes time and, like, a bunch of shit, I don't know. The thing about the healthy relationships is, like, I grew up not seeing healthy relationships, but thinking it was normal. And so, like, now that I am in a healthy relationship, one of the things that came with it is, like, self-worth. Yeah. Do I deserve this level of love or, like, health? Because A, I've never seen it. B, like, it's a self-worth thing and self-love go hand in hand, because it's like I think that some relationships will mirror and show you, and it just calls you higher to, like, be like, okay, I am worthy. Let me love myself more, or let me give myself grace, and not depend on you to do any of that work for me, because this is my own thing. But that's a part of healthy relationships is, do you think you're deserving and worthy?
Yeah, and also what are you repeating? If your mom's love was super controlling and only met in certain ways, like, you're trained to think that is love and seek it out. And I know that's very common in talking about relationships, but that's important. It is really real.
Because it plays a huge part.
Because then you get to the point of being like, wait, I see this pattern. I don't want to repeat it. But it's so, like, it's a lot of work to undo.
Well, even if you actively are raging against it, you often still create it. Right. Just on the opposite end of the spectrum. Right. Ethan and I do couples therapy every 2 weeks. It was like one of we need to do this because we're getting married and we're going to have a kid and, like, God willing. And I want things to be as smooth as possible when the shit inevitably does hit the fan. It's like, you know, knock on wood. I like the smooth and simple and easy, but, like, it's not. Like, we already have things that we have to, like, Ethan has brain cancer. We already have things that we need to worry about, and we know are going to be problems. And we want our relationship to be so, so, so solid when we do hit those inevitable speed bumps, that it doesn't, like, break apart. That we, like, have some rebound, you know? Yeah. But so much of our therapy, there's nothing wrong, you know? We're not, like, fighting. There's nothing, like, it's small things, like, oh, you know, I don't think about my tone because it's just important for me to, like, say what I need to, like, be heard.
You get it out.
Ethan is the opposite. He's like, tone is everything for him. It doesn't matter what he's saying. And so we are, like, we learned that from our parents. And it's not bad. It's just, like, how we learned to be seen and loved and communicated with. And we have different ways of communicating. And it doesn't mean either of us have to change. It just means that I need to know, like, all right, Ethan doesn't really, like, hear what I'm saying. He hears my tone. And so I can say the exact same shit in a slightly different tone if I want to potentially get a different outcome from him. And also, he can know Michelle's got a fucking tone. And that's just who she is. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. 100%.
You're a radio and jazz FM.
Right, exactly.
No, I have to put on my, like, lady hat, you know.
I feel like, to your point, what you were saying earlier, you know, about how, you know, oftentimes people are like, yo, if it's your trigger, like, you just got to deal with that. When you have entered into a partnership or relationship, there is a responsibility, because that's part of the commitment, I feel like, that you make as a partner, right? And sharing space with somebody that intimately, that vulnerably. There is a bit of a commitment, I feel like, that you make, that I'm not going to change myself for you, but I love you and I respect you enough that how you experience this relationship matters to me, right? So, like, because I know that tone is everything to you, right? I'm going to be more cognizant of my tone. Exactly. Because I love you. And I don't want to be in conflict with you, you know? And because, you know, like, and that just keeps going. But I think that, yes, I think that, you know, that is what it is to be in a healthy relationship. And not the, like, because you could land on one side of that, right? You could land on the, well, he knows that, like, that's just my tone, and, like, he shouldn't take it personally, and every time he does, that's the conflict. Why are you taking it personally when you know what it is? Well, you could take a moment, you could change your tone. It doesn't, what is it, what's the effort to change your tone, and then what does it show to make that effort,
Right.
for your partner. And so, yeah, I feel like there is definitely, that was one thing, again, also to your point too, in terms of just being able to hold space for having a safe space and for your partner to feel like you're holding space for their stuff. That's something that you actually have to like be cognizant of and like work at, because you don't know all of those things going into a relationship either. Like even like knowing this person that I knew for 5 years, when it actually came time for us to be in a relationship, I discovered so many things about what was important to him in a relationship, right? Like I just would have never known. So like those are conversations I feel like that have to happen. And that's why I think couples therapy is so cheap. I think everybody should be in couples therapy, whether you're married or not. Yeah. Also, I think if you endeavor to be together,
Sorry.
No, please go.
I was just thinking, imagine similar to like how to do your taxes and personal finance. Imagine if there was a class when sex ed started in Canada. I think it started in like grade 5 or 6. Like imagine, I know that's not everywhere. Around then or grade 7 or whatever, it was like how to be in relationship with another or how to communicate in partnership. Like, we would be a different society.
But that doesn't work for capitalism, though.
That's true.
Or religion.
Which inherently is linked to capitalism, because we're taught to be individuals or to have things within your household. We're not taught to have...
Or to live within a power structure.
Power structure, which puts the man at the top. And so, like, exactly. So even in a public school system or whatever, like teaching financial literacy so that people don't get credit cards when they graduate.
Or join the army
or that they do get credit cards
instead of going to college because they can't afford to go to college.
Yeah, it's not in the best interest of like all people to educate them. And so
it's not in the best interest of the system, yeah. It's in the best interest of all people, but the system, doesn't.
Because so much of what we're saying,
that.
It's all around like communication, dynamics. Like, especially it's different in romantic partnerships. And I think as a society, we're still trying to figure out like what does monogamy look like now? Because it's not an economic the purpose isn't just for economics anymore. Not usually, but I just think that's so interesting to think about. Like, imagine we had learned this. Even a little bit earlier.
I went to Catholic school and definitely grew up in like a traditional sort of community. But one of my teachers in high school had us read The Art of Loving by Eric Fromm. And it's actually
very progressive.
And it was my English teacher, and he had us read it like alongside Romeo and Juliet and Beowulf and all the other things you have to read. And I remember at the time being like, why are we reading this?
Interesting.
Like, it's not like literature. It's a philosophy book. But it totally shaped now, I recognize now, like, how I view relationships and love. And I think, like, for the better. Like, I think my life would have been a lot harder. My relationships would have been a lot harder if I hadn't have read that book. Not that I did everything perfectly, but it was really meaningful.
Shout out to Michelle's English teacher.
Mr. Rose, if you're out there.
Yeah, Mr. Rose.
Did a great job.
Thank
Progressive, you. Mr. Rose. I hope you're still out there teaching.
Yeah, that's good. I was talking to my parents the other day, and my dad was about to say something, and my mom was like, shh. And I was like, okay, you gotta tell me what's going on. And my dad was like, we're about to celebrate, like, our 41st anniversary. And my mom was like, oh, we just, like, we don't talk about that. I don't know, whatever their issues are. They don't celebrate it a lot. But I was like, okay, guys, what's your secret? Tell me. And I ask them probably every year because they're pretty happily in love. Which is really sweet.
Cool.
That's really cool.
But as kids, we never saw them fight. They were always like a unified front. Like they would each be like, well, I have to speak to your mother. Well, I have to speak to your father. And it was so annoying because you could never pull them apart. We all tried. Always. You could never.
I love it.
They would never talk shit about each other.
I love it.
That's cool.
You could never get anything between them. They would always be like, we are a united front first, and then we'll talk to you about this later. It was annoying.
I love it.
But I see how it worked, and they were like, oh, you know, like, I think you just have to be really forgetful.
I have heard this advice before when it comes to marriage. Have a bad memory.
And then they were like, I don't know. And I was like, well, do you still love each other? And they were like, of course we still love each other. And I was like, well, but are you in love? Like, are you really in love? And they're like, what does that even mean?
What does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, true. Like, we're obsessed with this idea of love that is based on, like, the Renaissance era that does not, it's like romantic love that is not true partnership love. And they were just like, what does that even mean? Like, who knows whatever that means? So maybe we are, maybe we're not, but we love each other. And they were like, just lots of patience, lots of forgetfulness, patience, hard conversations, and that's it.
I love it.
And they were just so, and I'm like,
easy.
it's not that simple.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like kids. I remember this one time I was babysitting this little boy, and he got on my nerves, and I pushed him.
I remember that. You were on the phone with me that day.
Yeah. So he really got on my nerves, and I pushed him, and then I realized that I pushed him, and I was like, oh my God, sorry, come here, give me a hug. And he was like, okay. And he came and gave me a hug, and and we went back to it, and I was just like, thinking if we had that childlikeness to us where we're easy to forgive because we recognize that the other person made a mistake, they are sorry, and we don't hold that against them.
Yeah.
That's work, but I feel like, and that's how you go back at it kind of with new eyes where you're just like, okay, I still love you even though you pushed me. Just don't push me again. Yeah. And then so that's my take on forgetfulness. It's just easy to forgive. Like I'm willing to forgive you as long as you don't do it again. And that's the thing. Don't be like out here being a doormat. But
that's beautiful. Forgiveness is such a big part of it. Because otherwise then it turns into like resentment, which is like so toxic over time.
Yeah, and forgiving yourself.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Jesus. The whole thing that I'm learning from a relationship and just like, even like thinking about like breaking up and like, this is good for me to like listen to all of the things about breaking up. But I think there's something to be said about not being afraid of breaking up.
Yes.
Which I don't care if I'm even there yet, but I know I had like a few moments where it was like, oh no, if I do this, we're going to break up. And it was just like, I think you have to lean into the abundance of what is as opposed to the scarcity of what isn't.
Yep.
And that's just also linked to self-worth. Do you deserve to feel this happy? But anyway, taking that back and just being like.
No, that like really hit me deep.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah, and knowing that if you break up, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I feel like the magic is like, when you don't ever think that again. When you never worry about, well, what if we break up? Where you're just like, if we're meant to be together, we'll be together.
Yeah. That part.
That trust.
Yeah.
And I think for some people, I'm sure it's not for everybody, but a lot of it lies in just the fear of not finding that love, having that type of, or alone. Even that idea again of love, again, and being alone, which again falls in line with trusting yourself, also just like having faith, right? That what is for you is for you. And also that I think that if we all desire something, that we all have the ability to have that.
100%.
I also think that one thing that I really learned that I'm very grateful for learning is that there's, I think, thousands of the ones for everybody out there. There
100%.
are like there's not one person out there.
You're more compatible than you realize.
100%.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to choice. It really comes down to choice. Like you could choose any day to like step out of a commitment or stay in it. But to me, like what I imagine, what I want for myself in a partnership and like a forever kind of partnership, and maybe it doesn't last forever. Maybe it lasts for a season and that's the season that I get out of it. But it'd be cool to have one that lasts. Well, I guess it's eventually maybe one will last forever, right? Even if I like get into a relationship now and then divorce at 50, I might get married again at 60 and then I'll die. Not at 60, but like, I'll be in that relationship. Who knows? Whatever. Anyways, the point is that it really comes down to choice. It's like I've met probably, to be 100% honest, in the last like 2 years, probably like 5 guys that I would like legitimately consider like dating. And like there are moments where I realized we weren't compatible in some other way, but like I could at any moment choose to be with those people, right? It really comes down to choice, which is another reason why I feel like if you find yourself on the end of being broken up with, me, and Wallace, we're in the same boat. I'm sorry, I didn't call you out. I'm sorry.
No, like if I'm going down, you're going down.
It's me. When you find yourself in that, it's like if you could hold on to that perspective that there's so many out there, it makes it easier, I feel like, to let it go, right? To not feel like, oh my God, like I screwed it up with the one, or like my one is gone, you know, like, or I've messed something up. It's like, no, that person just couldn't take all of you, and you know, couldn't take all your goodness.
Exactly.
And that wasn't the person for you. So
Your
find
one
somebody
will
who's going
know
to take all
your
your goodness.
oneness.
Exactly.
Your one will see you.
Exactly. So yeah, I just had to throw that out there because that's a real thing.
That's very astute.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're way more compatible than we think. There are lots of ones.
Definitely.
And I used to worry about having too high of standards, you know, of having my high standards be the thing that was like, because I didn't trust myself, pushing people away, or like pushing that potential perfectly compatible person away. Yeah, I think that just like comes with work. Like I do see people do that. I have friends who I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that person. Like, they're great. But you just don't want to be with anyone right now. So like, just admit it. Or like, you're not ready for a relationship. Or you don't want to be in a relationship. Or you want to be unhappy. And that's okay too. Like there's been years of my life where I'm like, I want to be sad. Just like, let me be sad. And that's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, that's life too. Life isn't just sunshine and rainbows and love. It's also like the depths.
Oh my God. Those are fun. That's what makes the sunshine and rainbow and love like fun. Like, and I relish sometimes in the depths of it. Sometimes it's fun just to like be sad.
Yeah.
Really, because like there's no obligation other than to be sad. Like, that's great.
You're feeling things.
I love it.
It's true, the full spectrum.
Yeah.
And you can cry to all the movies you want with no
Yeah.
abandon.
Yeah. I mean,
great feeling.
I feel like some of my not best, but my most vivid memories are me in the depths of heartbreak. You know, like really feeling like walking on the street in New York by myself. Like, listening to music, just like a single tear like coming down my face, like in true Pisces fashion, just like, oh man.
That's where all the drama lives, I feel like, in those in between. There's so much drama in life in those times. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
Well, and arguably that's often why we continue it, right? Like the drama is interesting.
Yeah.
Just like, you know.
I don't want interesting. I don't want it.
Like, yeah,
but you had it. Believe it or not, but you've had it, though.
You have had it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but exactly. Like, eventually, your bullshit gets boring.
Yeah.
Like, your drama gets boring.
Yeah, of course.
Your stories get boring.
Yeah, of course.
And then you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then there are new stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the sun always does come back out. Something that I was thinking about was like the moon, because I'm like, I love the moon. I'm so obsessed with the moon right now. And props forever. Sorry. And so one of the things is if you look at the moon like it's a new moon to a full moon, and then it goes right back to disappearing again. But it's so consistent. Like the moon will always go, but it will always come. And it's just phases.
Yeah.
It's just phases, but it's consistent. And even when you can't see the moon, the new moon, she's still there. Yeah.
Cyclical. I think that's beautiful. No, I was just thinking that like when you're in a breakup, it's actually the worst. Like there's nothing worse than the feeling of a breakup. Like it's so hard, but knowing that just because I've been on the other side, like it always gets better. And there's this sweet spot when you're like, you take your power back and you're like, okay, I'm doing all the things that make me happy. I'm like usually taking care of myself well, like doing what makes me feel healthy and good. And you're just at this peak where you're like, I'm on my own, I'm doing my shit, I'm taking care of my shit, and I'm on top of the world. You feel over the breakup, and it's like you're at this peak. But then it's like, what is preventing me from drawing some of that energy right now? And I think about that, because it's like we all have those moments where we're like, really taking care of ourselves well and like being kind to ourselves on different levels, and you can feel it, but it's just like you were saying with the phases of the moon, like, you know, drama comes up, if something happens, you get thrown off that and you go back through the cycle. But I even though I'm right in the thick of it right now, I know what it feels like to be on the other side. And if there's anyone going through that right now, I just can tell you, like, you will get there. It takes time, but, like, the sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how it is. But it's not forever. Like you said, it's cyclical.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta sit in it.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Until you get tired of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your own bullshit.
Damn.
Yeah. I used to rip at the scab
Mm.
in a breakup, you know, just to get all the juice out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, are these all the feelings left?
Yeah.
What else is there?
Yeah.
Oh, just more, okay.
Yeah.
More of that? Okay.
Sometimes you have to know that.
Yeah. And then eventually you get tired of it and you're like, I don't want to look at their Instagram anymore.
Yeah.
I'm blocking them. I don't want to text them anymore. I don't want to, like, hang out in groups with this person anymore. I'm ready to move on. I don't want to feel like this.
Yeah.
And it goes away
Yeah.
eventually. But also, grief is indiscriminate. So, like, grief comes when grief feels like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I've said this before, but the first time I went through my first grief experience, someone told me that, like, it's not like, oh, you're done with grief.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your life before and your life after.
Mm-hmm.
And you're never not grieving after that first grief.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're always in the process of grieving. It just feels different.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel as severe, you know, as, like, right when it happens or 6 months or a year after it happens. But you're still grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that, like, gave me a lot of permission to grieve old versions of me and old relationships and old partnerships while still being really happy. And like, there's nothing wrong with me being, like, completely in love with the person I'm with now and also having grief over the things that weren't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
being able to hold both of those at once.
Yeah. Because it all exists. I mean, the things that you experienced and the things that impacted you through that relationship stayed with you and they exist still even here within your relationship with Ethan. So in a way, it's like it's an honor, you know,
Exactly.
truly, of, like, all of the things that you've picked up along the way, because they were all for a reason, right? Like, they, again, going back to the idea of intuition, and, like, I really do think that, you know, I have very little experience in this, but my intuition tells me that we do. I feel like even when we're, you know, with people that are not right for us, and that could be for one reason or another, right? Like, I could be with somebody who's totally wrong for me, and my intuition's telling me that because I clearly need to figure that out, that person is not the person I need to be with, you know, but, or it could be, again, just a little thing of, like, I need to learn how to trust my own communication skills. I need to learn how to communicate the things that I need, you know, and know that that's okay. I need to learn how to forgive myself when I do make mistakes, because, Jesus, Lord, I thought I could have told you. I would have told you beforehand that I was good at forgiving myself. That relationship showed me just how little grace I can give myself during hard times. And so I'm grateful to recognize that and give myself more space, more grace.
Should we do a lightning round of best breakup solutions or best thing you can do, best thing you've done or can do during a breakup?
Okay, yeah, I'll go last. Let me think for a second. I'll tell you what I did. Okay, for me, the first thing I did was delete number, block on Instagram.
Yep, upvote that.
Immediately, because I just couldn't put myself, I would have been the person trying to text and picking a scab, and I knew I didn't want to pick a scab. It was going to make things worse, so deleted. And the next thing that I did, truly, honestly, was I set up a photo shoot for myself in San Francisco. It was the Fenty photo shoot that I did.
Yeah.
I knew that I was going to do that because I wanted to feel sexy and I wanted to feel good. And I really did it because I knew he was still following me on Instagram. That's the honest truth. And I wanted him to see me feeling good. And at the end of the day, right, you don't want to do things for the other person. But that helped me. It did make me feel good. I'm going to be honest. Every time I post something on Instagram and I feel good about myself and I feel sexy, it's like I take back my power that I gave to him. That's been my go-to right now, is just feeling sexy on Instagram.
Nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I upvote the blocking, and I would block on Instagram personally. You can always unblock.
That's fair.
But also traveling by yourself. Like, I think, like, creating new core memories is, like, really important. And even just, like, being sad in a beautiful place. kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
A little melancholy.
noteworthy. Yeah, exactly. So those two things. Also starting a company.
Yeah.
That's like one of the best things you can do on the wake of a breakup.
Yeah.
For real. Like, you got all this energy and, like, you need to be distracted. Also adopting a dog. Or an animal. I think those things really help you get over it. Because you're just like, you're in something else and you just can't, like, dwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I upvote all of those things. But distraction for me. Of just like being not even busy for the sake of busy, but
Bonnie agrees. But yeah, Bonnie stood up like, yeah, girl, I feel you. I feel you ladies over there.
I had one of my best friends was a saving grace during my breakup, and she was like, okay, so what's your schedule tomorrow? Let's make a schedule for you. Let's make sure you're jam-packed all day, like even if that's just having a Zoom call with me and watching a movie, like we're going to schedule your day out with productive things. And a lot of that ended up also just being like really active. For me, it's always like get outside as much as possible, move your body, because I process a lot through movement. So just like really, really moving my body. Lean on your friends, like people are there for you. I think like people really want to support you, and like you don't even know it sometimes, and people show up. They do.
It's true.
I don't know.
I haven't done that yet.
Okay, she's never been broken up with before. We get it. I think talking about it, well, it's to your point.
Yeah.
Just like fucking talk about it until you can't hear yourself talk about it anymore. And your friends will also tell you, dude, you gotta stop.
Yeah.
They'll rein you in.
Yeah, they absolutely will. Yeah, that to me was that was a great piece of advice. I feel like once you were like, you should just talk about it so you're tired about it, like tired of it yourself. That like gave me permission, I feel like, to talk about it more with people and like the details of like what was going on. Because I think I just like, I would say that, you know, I'm going through a breakup, but I'd avoid the details. I was like, nobody wants to hear that. And also like, why am I still going through? Like, I need to let it go. And, you know.
There's a lot of self-judgment.
Yeah. So, yeah, kudos. That's a great piece of advice. And yes, distraction is everything. That really is. That helps a lot.
Try to have healthy distractions.
Exactly.
Also.
Yeah. Pick up the tarot.
Yeah.
Talk to your spirit guides.
Yeah, make an archetype wheel.
Yeah. Join the cusp.
Yeah. Listen to our podcast.
Too far? Well, I think we did it. I think we did it.
Yeah, for
This is
sure.
good.
Yeah,
I think we could have 100 more conversations about relationships and breakups.
Definitely.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What do you want? Text us.
This is not a dating and relationships podcast. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here, team.
Yay, happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you on the internet. Bye.
Bye.
And that's it. That's today's episode. Thanks so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know that it's a little bit different, you know, relationship stuff, but our interpersonal relationships are very important to our well-being, and arguably, as I'm sure you've heard, the pathway to our own magic and to self-actualization. So they're important to talk about, and love is fun. Love is fun until it's not. Okay, so that's the 12th House podcast today. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you and love you so much. If you like this episode, please share it on Insta, on, do people still say Insta? On IG, on in the group text, in the Grext, in Slack. You know, just like share whatever you want. Send an email to your friends. And if you give us 5 stars and a review, that really, really does help us get found by more people. I know it sounds so stupid. We say it every week and you hear it all the time on other podcasts, but it's kind of annoying. It's really true. So we so appreciate, if you've been listening to this and enjoying it, that you go ahead and smash that subscribe button, give us 5 stars, and say what you love about the 12th house. This podcast is a labor of love, and we love making it for you, and we love hearing from you. So let us know if it resonated. All right, that's all I have for you this week. I love you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.